Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. And if you are just tuning in with me for the very first time, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm really glad you're here with me today. I am your host, Heather Carey, nutritionist, chef, mom, and a woman who has been around the block with food. I want to open up about real food in relation to health, weight, and our bodies so you can make peace with what you eat. Hi, everybody. Today I am with Jeanne Andrus. And Jeanne spent the first 48 years of her life doing everything, quote, the right way. Good grades, college, marriage, career, baby, all of the things that we know about. Then at age 48, perimenopause clobbered her. Her symptoms were Jeanne periods and hot flashes. She had depression, anger, low libido, which literally took her out of the life that she had built for herself. Determined not to let this change destroy her, she began a journey to health, happiness, and a new purpose in life. She lost 80 pounds, moved from New England to New Orleans, and quit her corporate job to help other women struggling with menopause symptoms to ditch their symptoms and delight in life again. After she realized how little information and support was available, she was determined to help women understand and control the changes that they were going through. Jeanne is a certified personal trainer, health coach, and behavioral change specialist. And she is the author of 5 books on menopause, including I Just Want to Be Me Again, and Where is My Wife and What Have You Done with Her? A Spouse's Guide to Her Menopause. And she has been helping women navigate their menopause journey for well over a decade. So welcome to the show, Jeanne. I'm so glad that you're here because I think we have a lot to talk about. Starting with
it's a big topic.
Yes, this is a gigantic topic, and I have been talking about it quite a bit on my podcast. And I think just the fact that the whole subject is such a life-changing experience for every single woman on the planet, and we all experience perimenopause and menopause, and it is so riddled with confusion and just shrouded in secret. I know that was definitely my experience. And I think the experience for so many people that I talk to. So menopause, I think, is just an unbelievably vulnerable time for women. And it can feel really lonely. So it sounds like that was your experience as well. And I know, like I said, that was definitely for me too. So we might have different perspectives. You know, we talked off air a little bit, and we might have a little different perspective on perimenopause and menopause. And I was intrigued with your belief that menopause is actually a gift. I think as a society, menopause gets a terrible rap. And I have to admit, I do not sing the praises of menopause very often. I believe, though, that many women have a lot of fear wrapped around menopause. There's fear of aging and shriveling up and losing our sex drives. And so let's talk about this gift. I'm really intrigued with this.
So people, I talk about this from an evolutionary standpoint. So humans were designed, all life is designed to replicate itself, to make more. And that means that humans are designed to have babies. And the majority of the bearing and rearing of babies in prehistoric times fell upon the woman. So she was pregnant a good deal of her time. She had infants and she was nursing a good deal of her time. She was probably nursing 2 to 4 years. And then the children were mobile, but they weren't self-sufficient for probably another 4 to 6 years before they were really contributing members of the tribe, which meant that the women of the tribe, were mostly tied to this having children and raising them to independence, which meant that they needed each other. They needed each other to create a community. And it was a clique, it was a tribe. It's not the same community that we create for ourselves possibly after menopause, but it was a very tight-knit community. And if you got expelled from that community, you were on your own with these children, or these children were left behind to fend for themselves in a tribe that might be hostile to them. So women evolved to make nice to each other and to make nice to their men. So the men came home and literally brought home the bacon, wild boar or deer or whatever they were bringing home.
Mm-hmm.
They were designed to stay in this community in order to raise these children. The way that happened, the way it works in humans, is the hormones, progesterone and estrogen. And I admit that I have not completely looked through the animal kingdom, but many other mammals have these hormones. But these hormones tell us, they literally trigger things in our emotions and brains to be these tribal, people-pleasing, go along to get along people. And then menopause hits. And menopause, the progesterone retreats and the estrogen retreats. And those areas of our brain that are designed to keep us from telling off the person next to us for being an idiot. I was working on rage last night, on some stuff on rage last night that came back out. But it's about talking. The people around us don't necessarily take our feelings into consideration. And all of a sudden, we wake up in our 40s and we say, wait a minute. For the last 30 years, all I've been doing is taking care of other people and meeting other people's needs. And if I even got to deal with my stuff at all, it was just in little dribs and drabs. And that was wonderful because I had these wonderful kids, and I have maybe this wonderful husband who's now getting a little annoying. But we get to take ourselves, if you think of yourself as having a circle in the middle of your life where all the most important things are. During our 20s and 30s and early 40s, the thing that's missing from that circle is us.
That's a very good point.
We get to put ourselves in the middle of that circle. It doesn't require throwing anything else out. There's room enough in there for us. And we can take as much of that circle as we want. Now, okay, some of us have late life babies, and that means that we're still dealing with those child rearing issues. And I'm not suggesting that you throw your kids out of that circle.
Right.
Or your husband or your job or your significant other of whatever. Your pets, you can keep all of those in there if you want, but you get to put your own needs, wants, passions, purposes into that circle. And it only happens because those hormones retreat and allow us to rethink who we are in this world.
So I understand what you're saying, right? Because as we get into our 40s and 50s, right? I mean, just naturally, our kids are older. They're moving on. We're empty nesters now. Every one of my friends, everyone around me in my circle are, we're all going through the same thing. Should we downsize our houses? Should we move? What should we do with the rest of our lives? I mean, I have to admit though, I mean, yeah, I guess I can see where, that's corresponding with then this like dip in estrogen and the dip in progesterone. And I'm just trying to equate. I mean, does the dip in estrogen all of a sudden make me question what on earth am I doing with the rest of my life? Because honestly, that, I feel for myself, at least, that hormone replacement therapy, adding back in some hormones that we have naturally lost has really saved my menopause experience, because I had a couple of the very classic symptoms of menopause. I had hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness, which
Mm.
were absolutely, killing my sex drive, killing my sex life, keeping me up at night. And therefore I wasn't sleeping. And so, I felt that it was a necessary add in, to add in back in some hormones. So I understand what you're saying about this time of our lives being an opportunity to reevaluate or to add us back into the equation. But does that have to do with
I
the
believe it does. I believe it does.
Mhm.
And I don't think that it's, I don't think it's not going to happen if you add in the hormones. I do believe that there are other ways to deal with many of those issues. I know vaginal dryness and vaginal atrophy are huge issues for women who want to retain an active sexual life, and certainly I do. Um, but I also think that there's other ways to manage some of that. There's ways to support your body to make effective use of what your body can continue to produce. That
Mhm.
said, there is no reason in the world for your symptoms, if you can take hormones, and not everyone can, and not everyone
Right.
should think that the herbals out there are not estrogenic, because they are very much so. So I always want to make that point very clear, because a lot of people don't remember it. Um,
Mhm.
but if you need it, yes, do not be miserable, but also explore the ways to support your body and add in when you take down, for example, when you take down cortisol and you're not as stressed, when you learn to manage your own stress levels, your adrenals get to make the residual estrogen and progesterone that they can make, and it is enough for many women. Now, like I said, some women do need hormone therapy. Some women do need antidepressants.
Mhm.
Some women need other drugs to manage other symptoms. And I would never say that if that is you, that that's wrong or evil. It's just there are ways to deal with it that are more natural. And so if you're like me and you come in thinking, I don't like taking pharmaceuticals, I don't like taking synthetic hormones, and I'm not seeing the benefit from um, bioidenticals. Doesn't
Mhm.
They don't work for everybody. There are
Right.
ways to make that work for you and to have a great experience, whether or not you are um, on hormones or not. So, um, the one thing I don't believe is gritting your teeth and bearing
Right. Yes, I
it.
agree with you on that. And I think that
It is
was,
not
yeah.
this experience has so much to offer to you, but you need to support your body. And by the way, they're not mutually exclusive. None of this is mutually exclusive, except possibly doctors who think that hysterectomies are the number one way to, and that used to be, but it's not. Thank God, it's no longer the
Mhm.
go-to um, treatment for menopause. Um, but there are lots and lots of ways to get through various pieces of this. And the best mix for you is the best mix for you.
So let's
So,
talk about some of those various pieces, because I think that I know in my world, in my circle, the women that I see, they want quick fixes. I'm a nutritionist, so they're looking for, a lot of people come to me and say, like, I just want my body back. I look at food and I gain weight. I don't know what happened to my body, but, and they, and they want fast and quick. And a lot of women just want to lean back on old dieting behaviors. A lot of sometimes disordered eating kind of like springs back up because they are so confused. All of a sudden they're like, gaining weight, and they don't really understand it and how to go about it. And, it takes, I think that during like this time, it takes a lot of slowing down, a lot of just introspection. You said looking at our stress levels, and it takes some work. It takes just a little more flow. And so tell me how, what you think. So I think sometimes people think that hormones are like the quick fix. They don't fix everything, yeah. Right? They're not a miracle by any means.
Number one, they only fix progesterone and estrogen.
Right.
And the truth is, the slowdown, they're not restoring you to your premenopausal levels. They're restoring you to sort of a minimal level with most doctors. And by the way, most doctors will only prescribe for a limited period of time. And then a lot of them, unfortunately, just say, okay, it's time to stop. I'm stopping writing your prescription. And if you do that, you just are right back into menopause, just all over again. It's just 5 years later. We're talking about hormones, and insulin does not work as well without estrogen, nor does thyroid hormone, nor does, and then cortisol is modulated by estrogen, so it doesn't affect us nearly as much. So our anxiety levels are lower. So when our estrogen starts to be not sufficient, even in the presence of HRT, those things are changing. So our hormones don't work as well without estrogen, because that's the way they're designed. There's an interaction between many of the primary hormones and estrogen: thyroid, insulin, cortisol, testosterone, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, just to name a few of the important hormones and neurotransmitters that aren't working as well. So even when we're on this lower dosage of hormone replacement therapy, we're finding that things have changed. Things aren't working quite as well as they did once. And that's, again, by design. Women during their reproductive years are more resilient in a lot of ways physically, so that because their bodies are doing all this bearing children, nursing children, raising children stuff, and if we don't make it through, our children are at risk. And for biology, that's not a good thing. That whole life trying to make itself more. So what happens is we need to slowly figure out what pieces have to get fixed and how to best fix that for an individual woman. And in my experience, it has never, ever, ever been exactly the same program for any two women, because we have different histories and we have different genetics and we have different social worlds. So, it's one person needs to be a vegetarian for philosophic or other reasons. Another person is a total carnivore. They don't eat any plant-based things. And then there are people who are somewhere in the middle. So we have this wide range of needs for a variety of reasons. And so we need to find our own way through. The truth of the matter is, there are no quick fixes to this. Right. There are things that can make it better almost immediately. And the places that I find really change things quickly is being able to change stress and sleep being probably the most important. And not sleeping is affects about 90 to 95% of all women going through menopause.
Yeah, I mean, right. Sleep and stress are like I mean, I know that, right? We know that like we have to get our stress levels under control and everything. And so, I mean, I know that you talk from this anthropological perspective that, yeah, of course, there's this reason why our hormones dip and that we're done
We're done that.
outputting. Yeah, we're
We do have other
reproducing,
things.
right? We're working hard and everything. And I imagine that thousands of years ago, this was like either your time to start resting and slowing down. But now
Being the
today in our
wise woman,
world, yeah, I mean,
being the wise woman,
yeah,
probably
being the wise woman.
they were probably the healers, the midwives, um, and possibly less social. They probably were off by themselves doing this healing thing, learning about the plants, learning about
Right. But
the world.
now when we hear like 30 or 50 is the new 30, and we're all still, many women are still in their careers and they are afraid of aging and getting, and just slow and afraid of slowing down. So the stress and the sleep really, the stress ramps up sometimes, in different ways. Our
Oh,
sleep gets
and
messed up.
menopause is no stress at all, right? Oh,
Right.
wait.
Yeah. And then we're going through menopause.
Yeah. So those are two things that can be changed fairly quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
they do make a huge amount of difference in the way you lose weight, the way you feel every day, the way you think, how well you can think, because stress is a big factor in brain fog.
Yep.
But it's a matter of finding what works for you in particular. And the truth is, you can decide at this time of your life that this is going to be the healthiest you ever are. And you can
Mm-hmm.
really make those choices to move into a very healthy, supportive way of dealing with yourself, whether or not you take the drugs or the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So, by the way, drugs and hormones will not make you glowing with health. They will make
Right.
you symptomless or symptom free, but they cannot make you glow with health. That's got to be exercise and nutrition and stress and knowing what's right for you and your body.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can, sometimes you see these ads for the medical spas and other health coaches, people who are really promoting different hormone therapies and they
Or
promote
even
it like that.
supplements.
Yeah. Or supplements, to be more youthful and it's right. And it's just not the case. I mean,
It's yeah. Yeah.
hormones can help some things and not all things for sure. You still have to do the inner work and
And some of the outer work. So, for example, hormones will not help you lose weight. Just won't.
right.
You have to do something about it. And neither will probiotics or prebiotics or vitamin D or vitamin K2 or all those
Mm-hmm.
wonderful things that, yes, I do take on a fairly regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't substitute for eating a diet that works for you and controls your weight at the level that you want it to be. That's a and it doesn't substitute for going out and exercising and moving your body.
Exactly. Right.
So basically, the holistic health plan that I work with is going to enhance a woman's life no matter what else she does. But there are some I think we started this conversation with what treatment options are out there, and I
Mm-hmm.
think of them as being seven options. And
Okay.
the first we've already talked about a little bit, and that's the grit your teeth and bear it. And I don't recommend that as more than a temporary solution for some symptoms.
Yeah. Now,
Then
I mean, I know a lot of women who do grit their teeth and bear it because they
And
can't figure it out because, like you had said that you had symptoms that were not on the spectrum of known symptoms, right? I mean, you had
right.
anxiety, you had, I mean, other,
I had
kind of like,
anger
yeah,
and uh, depression.
yeah.
And
I mean, I remember feel, yeah.
wound up going to a therapist for the depression and the anger.
Hmm.
And because I happened to be going to a 28-year-old woman, she had
Hmm.
no clue, no idea to tell me this is menopause and you need to do something about the underlying physical changes that you're going through.
Hmm.
My doctor didn't tell me. She should have. She should have known. She should have guessed. But
Yeah.
she thought I knew. And the problem is we hit this age and we don't know. And nobody tells us and
Right.
nobody diagnoses us. And half the time the doctor that you're going to is quote old school, and they don't think that it's truly perimenopause until your periods start getting truly wonky.
Hmm.
So if your periods are nice and regular like mine were, an old school doctor won't think to tell you. And a new school doctor, somebody who knows what's going on, may think you already understand it
Hmm.
because obviously you got told somewhere along the line, but we didn't.
Exactly. No one gives you the sex education manual for losing your period. we get the we
Nobody
get the
gives you
manual, we get sex education when we're in fifth grade, tell you what happens when you're getting your period, but nobody tells you what happens when you are losing your period, especially perimenopause.
nobody says to 40-year-old women, hey, the classroom is open. Let's go see the little Disney movie. By the way, that little movie that you saw when you were in fifth grade was produced by Disney.
Uh-huh.
And but nobody drags you into a classroom and says this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to watch for. This is when these are the signs, and this is what you can do about it.
Right.
So we do wind up going to doctors and getting treatments for things that aren't necessarily what's really going on. I think you and I may have had a discussion about heart palpitations, which is a common symptom.
Yes.
And it happens often before we are losing our periods or having such weird periods that we know something is going on.
Hmm.
So we have this heart palpitation, we have this fluttering in our chest or these irregular beats, and they're scary as hell.
Yep.
And you go running to the emergency room and you see a resident who hasn't had a class in menopause and certainly doesn't know that 48-year-old women have this happen to them frequently. And
Hmm.
okay, it's not necessarily 48, could be 46, could be 51.
Hmm.
But they send us through this battery of tests. They scare the bejesus out of us. And then
Hmm.
and then at the end, we go to a cardiologist who says, well, I don't know what's going on. You look fine to me.
Yeah. That
Here,
was,
take this cholesterol medication.
yeah.
And then they put us on a bunch of drugs.
Right.
So knowing that it's possibly perimenopause means that you get to go to your doctor and you say, first of all, you don't have to go in the middle of the night. Yay.
Right.
If you think that this is probably perimenopause and you've kind of gotten a warning and you don't feel any other symptoms of a heart attack, then you
Hmm.
say, I'm calling my primary in the morning and getting a referral to a cardiologist. I'll go to the cardiologist. He can do the tests. And when he says, I don't see anything, then you can say, good, this is perimenopause. And all of a
Yep.
sudden you relax. You don't have to feel like all of a sudden here you are at the age of 48 dying.
Yeah, no, that was my experience too. When I was in my probably mid to early 40s, even I was having heart palpitations and I called my doctor and they went into like a 3 alarm panic there, all of a sudden because I could be having a heart attack, but and I thought, and I didn't know that this could be a perimenopausal symptom. and I went through all the tests. It was all
Wore the Holter
nothing came
monitor,
out.
yeah.
Yes, I wore the Holter monitor, the whole thing. Everything was inconclusive.
Yeah, no shower for however long the thing
Yeah.
is. It's awful.
Yeah.
But if
And
you
no one mentioned perimenopause to me. No one. I didn't even
no,
really know what the word perimenopause was back then, because not
right.
a single gynecologist, no one was even mentioning it to me.
No, and no one does mention it.
Yeah.
My first symptom happened at the age of 43. I remember it distinctly. My allergies changed. So I
Mm-hmm.
had bee allergies and skin allergies most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my early 40s, those kind of went down. But what I got was instead was seasonal allergies, pollens and grasses.
Yep.
And I remember distinctly driving through northern New England on the day that the pine pollen rains. It literally turns the air a yellowish green up
I know.
there in the
I
pine
live in New
forest. It's
England, so I
beautiful.
know exactly what you're talking
It's
about.
beautiful, but if
Yeah.
you have seasonal allergies and you don't have Benadryl in your car, you start sneezing and you
Right.
sneeze and you sneeze and you sneeze and you almost go off the road and you finally find an exit and you buy two Benadryl. I swear they were $9 for two Benadryl because they were in
Mm-hmm.
that little packet that you buy next to
Yeah.
at the gas station. And I had to just sit in my car until I stopped sneezing about a half an hour later. And I didn't have anybody with me. So it was really a pretty dangerous thing. I can laugh about it now. And I know what it was now.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked to a gynecologist probably 3 months ago online, just chatting, happened to run into her in a group. And someone asked if changing allergies were a symptom of perimenopause. And she says, I swear they aren't. And when I questioned her on it, she says, isn't Dr. Google wonderful?
Mm.
And it's like, no, my body is wonderful. My
Yeah.
body told me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's such
So
a great point. I mean, just get the differing of opinions from different gynecologists alone. I mean, I've
they
had
don't they
plethora
don't
of
get
different
the
opinions. Mm-hmm.
and and if you go out looking for symptoms of menopause, because they have a huge 1,000-page website that is all interconnected. There is a herbal supplement out there. I'm not going to name it because I'm not a huge fan,
Mm-hmm.
but there's an herbal supplement out there that has a website that has put out the quote 34 symptoms of menopause.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody believes that's a definitive list coming from some medical god on high.
Yeah, I've talked
Well,
about that. I know that 34 symptoms of menopause. I mean, I think it's a good start. Right? I mean,
it's a
because
good
there could
start.
be,
My
yeah.
list in my book is over 100, and it
Mm-hmm.
includes the things that happen because insulin isn't working well or thyroid isn't working as well, because those are related to how your progesterone and estrogen have dropped and created
Mm-hmm.
these thyroid issues or this
Mm-hmm.
insulin issue or the cortisol issue. So they are symptoms of our changing bodies as we go through menopause.
Yeah, not necessarily just because of the dip in estrogen and progesterone, but because of like a roundabout. Wait, do you have that list? Could we link that in our show notes?
I can link a copy of that in the show notes. Yes, that
Okay,
someone can download. And
that would be wonderful.
it's not the list from the book, which has a little bit of explanation about each of them. But it is just a
Okay.
straight list by sort of body system category.
Mm-hmm.
Things like dry skin and brittle nails are all lumped together, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
But
that would be
but
great. I
yes.
think my
And
audience would love that.
so, we talked about gritting your teeth. So the important thing there is to recognize that what's happening is perimenopause and that you can do something about it. Then there's the HRT that you've talked about. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of holistic treatments. There's a lot of herbs that do well for perimenopause and menopause symptoms, and alternative medicine treatments like acupuncture, acupressure. There's a great treatment for acupressure treatment down in the lower leg. There's a point, and that your acupressurist or acupuncturist can tell you about. Reiki and alternative energy methods can help a lot. Hypnosis can help a lot. I incorporate those things in my work with my clients because they can help. They can help us deal with it. They can help us rethink it. They can help us just manage it. So there are those. The problem with herbals is that most of the herbals that you see are estrogenic. So that if you have an issue with estrogen, and that can include the risk for breast cancer and also fibroids or also cervical cancer and other uterine cancers can be exacerbated by estrogen. So it may not be the best treatment to be in an estrogenic state.
Exactly. Right.
So, that's from the herbals. Let's see. The HRT is probably the third one. Pharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals are generally, they use antidepressants for hot flashes, and it's an off-label use of antidepressants.
That's right.
And it does work, but many of those antidepressants are addictive, and they can be bears to get off of.
Absolutely.
And when you get off of them, it is possible and likely that the hot flashes will come back. So again, short-term treatment for a big problem, yes. Long-term, don't we want to do something that's more healthy? Talk therapy. Talk therapy has been a long-term treatment. That's why they call it hysterical. It's related to that old name for the uterus, that the Greek name, I believe it is. And there's a real benefit to talk therapy in midlife, because what I see is that a lot of our trauma comes back at us because we now have this more open space for us. So things that happen to us as children or happen to us as young adults or even as midlife adults that are traumatic can come back.
Yeah, I think on my end too, just as a nutritionist, I see that I mentioned this before, some disordered eating can kind of start to rear its ugly head again and come to the surface. And I agree with you that it is an opportunity right now that we're not outputting to our kids and we're not, we're in that.
We have the space.
And it is a gift. It really is a gift to have the time and the space to focus inward and focus on ourselves. So I think there's like these two spectrums, this like grin and bear it and tough it out and not do anything and not know anything. Then there's like thinking that hormone replacement therapy is like the savior. And then there's all this other stuff that's in between. There's all of these tools like in your toolbox, therapy, Reiki, acupuncture, there's a whole, and everyone is really very individual.
Yeah.
So I think that overall, what we've talked about, and I think when I first came into, speaking with you is I was prepared to talk about, like the benefits of hormones and stuff, but really having this conversation about the gift of menopause has been very, very enlightening, just even for me. And just as a reminder that it is a good opportunity to focus in on ourselves and care for ourselves and be compassionate with us. And I think that is incredibly important at this age of life.
And I think one thing that we sort of haven't touched on, although it's an obvious conclusion sometimes, is that this is happening to us at the age of 50. We aren't old. And we have decades left.
Yes, we do.
So isn't it time to take care of yourself, to promote your wellness to its fullest, so that when you're 83 or 85, you're still doing amazing things.
Absolutely. Great point. Great, really great things to think about. Well, Jeannie, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. And just tell me, how can people find you? Do you coach one-on-one? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I do coach one-on-one. And I do believe that women, for the most part, do need a unique, tailored to them plan. I also have a class that's it's a 4-week class that is about learning the basics, this information that we've talked about. And I really hope that women will send their younger friends, women in their early 40s, who need to understand this coming in.
Absolutely.
To this class. And I also have my own podcast, Menopause Matters, and a TV show also of the same name, which is currently on Phenix TV, Phenix TV.app, and is going out towards some more widespread distribution. And I do have the books. So there's all kinds of ways to reach out to me, but the best place to start is my website, menopause.guru.
Okay, well, I will link all of those in the show notes so everyone can have very quick access to finding you and those 100 symptoms of menopause that we
and I will put that out there so that people can get that to you, get that right off of the show notes.
Okay, well, great. Jeannie, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation and can't wait to share it with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather. Okay. It's been a blast.
Great. Have a great day.
You too.
And as always, if you loved this podcast, please consider gifting me with a 5-star review. It is so helpful for me to get the word out on real eating, our real bodies, and real food stories. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye for now.